Do you make people feel heard, understood? Today we'll be discussing three skills for interactive communication. So, welcome to the Value Minded Podcast. My name is Jared.
My name's Bill.
We give you three skills for interactive communication. Asking the question, do I make people feel heard and understood?
Yeah, so last episode we talked about one-way communication, informational communication. And this time we're going to be talking interactive communication and some of the skills, three skills around that. And again, a reminder from last episode, communication is the number one vehicle with which we influence others.
Yeah.
So it is a foundational skill for both you and us to not only master, but continue practicing. Because society changes, people change, there are different personality types. It's just something that should be ongoing. It's a tool that you're just always polishing. So three types of interactive communication. Social. Hey, how you doing?
Right.
Let's have fun. Right. And emotional. My mom just died. You're just kind of getting the emotions out. This is often when my wife comes home at the end of the day. She doesn't want me to fix anything. She just wants me to listen. And she's doing download of the day for what her day was like or what hurdles and problems she had. She just wants a ear to listen to.
For sure.
Emotional. And then there's practical, which we'll talk about a lot today in regards to just, hey, we need performance improved. Hey, this is the direction the company's going or the organization's going. Yeah. So any of that. So social, emotional, and practical. And tip, you may find yourself moving through all three of those in any given coaching scenario where if you're trying to coach someone to better performance. So prepare yourself for that. So some of the circumstances we could find ourselves with interactive communication, coaching, as I mentioned, mentoring, a kind of a collaboration, brainstorming, right? Just kind of a classroom, Mr. Teacher, instructor, I have a question. Or, hey, water cooler talk, hey, how's your pet doing? I heard you took it to the vet the other day. So these are all different avenues that we could be using interactive communication in and practicing them in.
Yeah. I think it's, we don't want to over talk the point, but it's really crucial that we think about how good we are or lack thereof with communication. This starts at the playground, in school. It goes, probably even before that, conversation with your parents as a toddler, all the way through life. People will conversate, they'll converse with each other, but never really thinking, am I good at this? If I'm not very good at this, could I grow at this? Especially when you're talking with other people. I think it's crucial that we as leaders, again, with this idea of being the number one way that we influence people is communication. So we're self-reflecting on if we're able to do it well.
Yeah. And were you one of those people during the pandemic that were more isolated and kind of lost the polish on this skill a bit that you need to really focus on it? And this kind of social interaction, interactive communication.
Yeah. And so just another kind of context here, question that is often overlooked, is self-evident where it's overlooked. What is the goal of the conversation? That's a great question to ask. If you're about to step out of your office and go have a conversation, have you identified what the goal of this conversation is? And so, that may look like the organization's goals or objectives, meaning you're about to go give an interactive type of speech and you're trying to get others to buy into perhaps the values of the company or the new direction the company's taking or, any types of those kinds of scenarios. Have you identified the goal and what that's going to look like? The other one,
burn bridges. And that's my goal for every conversation. Burn as many bridges as I can. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Don't set that as your goal.
Yeah. And connection, again, we talked about this in previous episodes, but it's super important. If the end goal of this conversation is to connect, that's going to allow you to open up, I think, broader than just going out and saying, hey, how's your day? Because there's a shallow level of, hey, how's your day? Good. And how's yours? Good. And then or connect with that person. So identifying, is connection really the goal? How can I do this? What may be a good starter question? do I have notes on my last conversation with this person? So just really thinking through that. Correction could be another goal. Those are the ones that we don't really like to talk about because they're tough.
Tough
But
conversations.
am I about to go have a tough conversation? Identify that, yes, this is what I'm doing. Here are the goals for this conversation. And I need to make sure I kind of guide the conversation in that way because I'm trying to get to the said goal. Encouragement and inspiration could be another one.
You see someone who's just kind of struggling, having a bad day, you just want to, want to go encourage them. I want to help them feel a little bit better about their circumstance.
And I think too, a lot of us kind of know intuitively when we're about to step out and have a conversation, kind of why we're having a conversation. But goals are a little different than why, I think, in a lot of ways. So really kind of being able to solidify, I'm having this conversation today because it's the deadline, right? Or I'm having this conversation today because my superior said I need to have this conversation. But then identifying what is the goal of the conversation.
Yeah. And one cautionary, I don't think winning the argument is necessarily a healthy goal
Shouldn't
to
really
go
ever
into
be
a
a goal.
conversation with.
Shouldn't really ever be
You,
a goal.
you don't want to win an argument at the extent of losing the relationship. You want to win the relationship, and then you win people over. So there's other skill sets of
Right.
starting with why, which we've talked.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah, as Jared said, we're often working towards a goal or something, a vision, a direction, and as a business, as an organization, as an entity.
Yeah.
And there's an approach that I take in helping people move down the field, move the ball down the field in their progress, in achieving the business goals, in changing their behaviors so they perform better and just at overall performance. We call it coaching with a mirror. Coaching, yeah. So most roles will have a job description, expectations of what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing, and how well you're supposed to be doing it. So what I typically do, is okay, here's a mirror, here's how you're doing. Here are the standards. Where's the gap? And then why is the gap? Right? And the onus doesn't fall on me, right? It falls on them, their performance, and for them to speak to it. Took this role on, these are the expectations of the role, and here's where you are, and here's where you need to. What's going on? How can I help you? How can I help you move from here to here? Is there is there a roadblock? Is there a tool that's not working? I can go and get working fixed for you again. Is there something you don't have? A tool, a resource, information, a skill I can bring to you and train you with or equip you with so you can do this. But what is the gap and why is the gap?
That's a fantastic example, I think, of keeping the connection, right? Not losing the connection for the sake of winning an argument, right? Or correcting someone. And so that really in interactive communication, that's going to be a really effective goal, I think, an effective way of communication when it comes to coaching.
And sometimes the gap is, I don't feel like it. I don't want to, it's a will issue, not a skill issue, so to speak. So whenever you're trying to get someone to move from this side of the gap to the other, there's three things that need to line up for them to make that decision, to move, to make the change, to the buy-in. And whenever there's a big decision to make in life anyway, these three things apply. If you're about to go buy a new car, buy a house, get married, start a relationship with this person, make a change in the direction of the company, create a new vision, a new goal, these three things will apply. So people will not buy in unless it feels right. They think it makes sense in their minds. And then their will is willing to buy. So it's think, feel, and will. All three of those need to line up before you really get buy-in or step into making that change into that direction for where you want them to go. So it's all about, does this feel right? Are my emotions lined up with this? Boy, I want to buy a car right now. Oh, yeah, my emotions are lined up. I'm ready to buy my car. All right. Can we afford the car? Ooh. Well, no, I don't have enough of a down payment to bring my monthly bills down. That's the thing, right? And okay, it feels right. I think I'm pretty sure we have the money in the budget to do this, but I just don't feel like it right now. Right now, it's not the time. There's, maybe something else going on that you need to process or work through or what have you. So it's that feel, think, and will, they line up. And then you can move forward with the decisions.
And this is what we need to be thinking of when we're approaching the two-way conversation,
Yeah.
two-way communication. This is what you're looking for others. You have to feel it, you have to think it. They're going to have to be willing to. That's super important when it comes to interactive communication.
Yeah. And we'll get to this in a minute. Sometimes when you're going into a coaching opportunity to improve someone's performance and you're having this interactive conversation, in the sense, sometimes I'll ask a question I already know the answer to. Yeah. I know how they're performing. I go into my tools and resources and see what they're doing and how well they're doing. And I'll go and think, I think you're doing. Are you doing better than this week? All last bulletins. So I know that answer, but I'm asking it to test their will, to test their understanding and perception. Oh yeah, I think I'm doing okay. Oh really? Well, let's go evaluate. Let's go look at this and look at that. Okay. Does that line up with what you think? Oh, no. So it brings clarity as well. But anyways, getting back to the making decisions, it's all about making changes, right? And we want to bring people through the process of making that change. And we know we all just love change. It's our favorite thing to do, is to change something. But John Maxwell has what he calls the tides change. Basically 4 reasons when people are actually willing to change their making. Number 1, they hurt enough that they have to. There's just the pain's too much. The pain outweighs the fear of change. They hurt enough to have to, or they see enough that they're inspired to. Oh, I get that now. I'm inspired to do that now. That's good. Awesome on the other side of that decision. Learn enough that they want to, right? And that goes into that think part of it. Number 4 is receive enough that they're able to. They've just absorbed that, and their will is surrendering to it, and they're willing to go into that change.
And that really is, it's a lot of great information for, and this idea of two-way communication and really elevating your ability to communicate with people well, especially interactive face-to-face two-way conversations. And it's a lot to keep in mind as you even enter these conversations. Again, a lot of you, like us, I'm assuming, I don't want to put you in a box, but I know for us, when we were learning this, we were like blown away, because this isn't something you think about when you go to have a conversation. You're not thinking about the whole feel, think, will. You're not really thinking about, is this person in a place of hurting, or are they going to be able to see this enough, or have they learned enough to want to do this, or have they received enough to be able to? We're not really thinking through their minds or eyes or in their circumstance. We're just coming at this with, again, maybe thinking like last week, this is just informational. When no, this is actually two-way conversational, trying to get change, trying to get buy-in. Again, it's a lot of information, but it's healthy to think through with these things.
An interactive conversation, interactive communication, as much as an art form as it is a skill.
Right, it really is.
It's something that can be practiced. It's something you can practice and get better at, no matter where you are in your skill level. But it's also in terms of art form of just learning different personality. Have you ever taken a personality test? Have you taken different personality tests to bring a better holistic perspective on what to expect from this type of person at this time under these circumstances? And that's kind of where the art form takes place. Seeing around those corners and anticipating possible response.
Before we get to the 3 skills, I do want to give you one more kind of disclosure, if you will. Good piece of information that, again, Bill and I have both learned, again, from parenting. So here's our leadership parallels parenting moment, right? We should make this little short videos on that. Leadership and
there we go.
Parallels parenting. Anyway, here it is. The foundation of effective communication, period, is authenticity. So we just want to make sure we make this call out. The foundation of effective communication. Anybody can communicate, but if you want to be effective, you need to be authentic.
You do.
Before I even give you this, I will tell you that people can see through the baloney.
So I just listened to this in another podcast. In some podcast, he was interviewing someone, and they did a test where they recorded people with authentic laughter, and they get the same number of people who just told them laugh like you mean it. 92% of the time, people could identify which group was authentic and which one wasn't. So this is a very important skill, being authentic in your communication.
And here's the parallel that I found when putting this, content together. My children will pick up on tone of voice, volume of my voice, my body language, right, and my attitude, right? And they're able to kind of filter my authenticity sometimes through these kinds of lenses. I'm grateful and thankful that they've learned the art of forgiveness, right? For when I do kind of, hey, this isn't really dad being, or this is really dad being authentic, because dad has a fuse, lose it every once in a while. So they get to see that. There's a little bit of transparency in that, unfortunately, from time to time. So when you're communicating with people, don't kick yourself, in the behind for, those moments where you do often fall short, and there's a little bit of transparency there, because people are going to understand, oh, hey, he's authentic. He owns it. He owns the fact that, sometimes he gets a little passionate, and he owns the fact that sometimes he can't compose an email to save his life, right? Whatever it may be, just own those kinds of things, because people are going to see through, the baloney of you trying to be someone you're not, or you're trying to act like you're way up here, but really you've got a lot of growth left to do. So we have found, don't fake it till you make it, because people are going to see through that. Be authentic. And when you're communicating with people, it's really important, because sometimes, and again, this is one more that my kids will see, even at their, young age, dad doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not learned enough, and the kids pick up on that.
They do.
When you're talking about something you have no earthly idea. Again, just effective communication. The foundation of that is authenticity. Don't be afraid to make mistakes either. So Bill, give us the three. We promised you guys, it took us 3 to get there, but the 3 skills.
Yeah, the first one. Let's get into the first one, is asking questions.
Again, this is effective communication 2-way.
It is. The skill number 1 is asking them questions, not necessarily just making it a monologue, right? You want to be able to engage them. At my current place of employment, we practice this 30-70 rule. 70% of the time we want the other person talking, right? And we do that by asking them strategic, powerful questions, open-ended questions, closed-minded questions. So John Maxwell, again, our favorite leader that we like to learn from, he said, one of the best ways to persuade others is with your ears.
Yep.
By listening to them.
Ears, one mouth.
Yeah, exactly that kind of thing. Listen twice as much as we talk. So, and that goes back to connecting before you correcting. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Using care and candor. It's all the same idea. And it's okay, like I said earlier, to ask questions you know the answer to.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're trying to gauge their understanding, their perception of where they stand, or where their will level is at, or their think. How well do they understand this, right? Or their emotions. Maybe there's something going on. They had a death in the family. They're going through a rough time in their relationships. They just had a fight with that. Other emotions can be high. So asking questions you already answer to is not cheating. It's not being deceptive. It's a powerful tool to gain an understanding of where the other person's and how they answer. Mm-hmm. So use questions rather than statements. It leads to self-discovery. Right. If you ask the right powerful question, it helps them. That gap we talked about, the mirror type of a coaching. Why? There's the gap. Why is that a gap? How do we close the gap? How can I help? Those are self-discovery questions, right? And that leads to a greater sense of ownership from them in the action that they need to take, because they discovered it. You didn't tell it to them, right? And it creates space for their participation in the process. Which is key to move that ball down the field, right? And make it change. Yeah. So make them feel heard, make them feel understood, use questions. Never make a statement when you can ask a question. C.S. Lewis says, always look for the assumption in the question. I love that quote. Me too. Listening allows others to lean. If you just sit and not to pat myself on the back, that's one of the common threads I get feedback on in different organizations I've been in. See, Bill, you're just a good listener. That's a practice. Part of it's personality I've inherited from my dad, who's a great listener. And part of it's something I've intentionally practiced to keep my mouth shut and just them fully get out what they need to get out and respond with a question, not with a statement. It also allows me time to collect my thoughts and respond effectively, not just respond out of the moment, but constructively, intentionally,
Accurately.
effectively, accurately have a response. So that's skill number one. Ask questions.
Ask questions. It's funny because I heard something recently. It was on it came through my Instagram feed. Maybe it was real. Listen to the entire thing. So this is your podcast. Way to go for calling this out. There's something being talked about right now going around called the Babel effect, where, you'll sit in a room and a person will just be babbling. But that doesn't equate to, the leader in the room. That doesn't equate to anything. It doesn't mean you know a whole lot just because you run your mouth. So it was a big call on, wow, what am I even saying? And should I be talking at the moment when I could be asking really good, solid questions for my own knowledge, for my own response, for the betterment and the value of people on me?
Yeah.
Super good call. Ask questions. The second skill is reiteration. I may not have thought of this recently, but repeating other statements or questions back to them, right, for clarity helps them feel heard and understood and valued. But again, it helps for the same reasons Bill mentioned previously, just give time to collect my thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. So use the tool of reiteration. Sometimes it looks like somebody comes and they sit and they will begin to speak to you about a certain procedure or a policy or another person in the office. One of the go-to phrases is, so what I'm hearing you say, or what I'm hearing you ask me, right, is this, and repeat it back to them. And they give them the opportunity to say yes or no and correct it. But then that allows them to feel heard, understood, and valued. And it gives you clarity, accuracy when you go to respond. So practice reiteration. The other thing that it does, we mentioned in the last episode, is it helps to build credibility with accuracy. Nobody likes a leader who, when you come in, and you ask the question and they just answer it, they didn't answer the question you asked. Their credibility is flying out the window as you're having this conversation. Yeah. So if you want to build credibility with accuracy, use the art of practice of reiteration.
It's awesome. It's powerful tool. So do you make people feel heard and understood? The first two skills there of how to do that. One, ask questions, or two, reiteration. And the third one to help people feel heard and understood is transparency.
You're going to have to explain that because that sounds really scary.
It is to a point, but just keep in mind, when I say transparency, I don't mean full transparency, too much information, right? But you want to be relatable in your transparency. I have a saying, this is mine. I'll take ownership of this one. I created this. Transparency builds community. Nothing more and nothing less. Being authentic, as we talk about, is often talked about these days. When someone says, oh man, my dog just died, or my mom passed away.
My girlfriend's leaving.
I just got in a car accident. Yeah. What from your experience can you share that's relatable to that? And share that story with them, right? Be fully transparent on what happened, how it made you feel, what was the result, and what did you have to go through to work through that?
Maybe the second or third time you talk to a person about their first one, maybe just hearing them and I'm sorry that happened to you. And then the second time you're talking with them, it may be appropriate to share a story with them.
And they go, oh, you're relatable. Oh, you get me. Oh, I feel like you understand what I'm going through. So being transparent yourself is a really strong tool. Just a real practical example. One time when I took over a team, I had to go first meeting with this individual from this team. It was kind of a handoff from the previous manager who was overseeing it. There's a warning. needed to be delivered, an attendance warning. Hey, you crossed the threshold. This is getting into dangerous territory. You're not fulfilling your obligations to your job role as described. I had to go in and deliver this warning. And it's kind of a 3 strikes thing, first warning, second warning, third warning, kind of thing. And this was the first one. And I'm like, okay, how can I get into this conversation and connect with them first? How can I build that rapport? How can I add value? Help them I see them as a person. I know there may be something going on in their life that's caused this to happen. So it was a virtual experience, and we were online. We kind of Zoomed on one another, and there was a dog in our lane. I'm like, we have 2 dogs. Wow, that is a pretty dog. What's your dog? How long have you had your dog? Is that your only dog? How long have you had him? Did you have to train him? And we got this whole tangent. She was happy. She was relaxed. She comfortable. And I said, all right, I could talk all day with you about dogs to myself. Let's get into the reason I said, unfortunately, I have to do this. It's an attendance work, from the previous. She's like, really? And I explained to her. She goes, oh, yeah, that's right. I did that. Yep. That's what happened. I get it. No problem. And I said, good news. This is the first one. It's a number of days. This flows off. It never happened not a problem. It was just a one-time problem. I'll take care of it. And before I left the conversation, she came back and she said, thanks so much for starting the conversation the way you started. Wonderful. That made me feel much more relaxed. Some bigger trouble or something larger, and you just set me at ease from the start. So that's the power of just being a little transparent, sharing your life with them, and making that connection and helping them feel heard and understood. Again, 3 skills: asking questions, reiteration, and transparency to help people feel heard, understood.
So transparency builds communication. The thing that
Transparency builds community.
Yeah, transparency builds community. And the thing that I have on this idea of transparency today, something I've coined my own phrase, if you will, is that transparency alleviates pressure, which we just saw in your story. But I've run into this with those with whom I lead, on my staff, and I'm really able to use my own stories, my own experiences, when appropriate, of course, as we discussed, but it helps to alleviate the pressure. I'll often have a leader come to me, either distraught or really struggling because something they're going through personally. And when I'm able to be transparent, it's hard because I don't like to be transparent in some ways. I like to have my privacy.
Well, you're not being transparent about everything.
Yeah,
it's
but just
intentional and specific.
It's intentional and specific. And a lot of times it's extremely helpful to alleviate the pressure because for no other reason, wow, not only one.
My gosh.
So when you can bring someone to the realization you're not alone, like that builds community and alleviates pressure, allowing you to have a 2-way conversation that is going to be extremely beneficial when it comes to adding value, influencing.
How many times have you been afraid? Like, oh, I'm the only one facing this. I'm the only one. No one feels the way I feel. No one's experienced what I've experienced. And then to learn, really, there was someone else. Tell me, who needs this?
Yeah.
How'd you handle it?
Again, ask questions. Skill number 1, reiteration. Skill number 2, and transparency. Skill number 3, when it comes time for you to have an interactive conversation, these are the skills we would encourage you to practice. Again, so in closing, we want to clarify directing versus connect for us. Directing versus connect.
Yeah, so directing, part 1 of our video series on communication was informational download, and then interactive is all about connecting. Again, as we've talked, and we got an episode about this, connecting before you correct. Make people feel heard and understood.
Right.
Let them know you see them as a human being, care about them. You're going to get a lot more buy-in, care, and you're going to have a loyal person who's willing not only to do what you need to follow your leadership.
So we would encourage you to find a person or a group of people, if you will, and practice these three skills of asking questions, uh, reiterating back to the person, and being transparent when you have the opportunities. And, let us know how it's working for you, and
Leave
if
a
you've had
comment.
luck, and throw a comment. We'd love to hear a little bit about your story and if these skills come in handy for you. So again, good luck with these skills. As always, thank you so much for joining, and we will see.
Thank you for your time.